Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Dark Rhino Security Confidential. I'm your host, Manoj Tandon, and today we are joined by a very special guest. We have Dr. Joseph J Burt-Miller with us. He has an illustrious history. He just recently received his PhD, so congratulations to him. He was down in Florida last week to go and receive the actual degree. But you know, Joseph's come to us. He's got a great background, and we're going to actually have him on again a little bit later to talk about how he got into cyber. But we'll touch upon it briefly. He's had careers in the U.S. Air Force. He's done HVAC. He's worked for our federal government, and now understands cybersecurity infrastructure, cybersecurity issues related to infrastructure better than anyone else on the planet. And we're really honored to have him. Dr. Joseph, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for. Hey, by the way, I got to ask, how's Florida?
Oh, Florida was great. Great weather. No, it was beautiful. I had a real good time there.
That's fantastic, and congratulations on your degree again. That's great.
Thank you.
So I got to ask you a little bit. I know our listeners are going to want to know this. You spent some time in the Air Force. Did you learn about cyber in the Air Force?
No. So my first career field was HVAC. So that's heat and ventilation, air conditioning, for those who don't know. So that was my first career field. I learned that while in the Air Force. I spent 4 years in the military before getting my honorable discharge. Did some time, working some jobs before I got back into the government as a civilian, working at the VA hospital in New Jersey, and still doing HVAC for maybe about 4 or 5 years. And during that time, I was studying for my bachelor's degree in computer information systems, and I was really pushing because I even received some motivation to really finish. As I would notice my coworkers who would come into work, they always had some sort of ailment. They were limping or something.
Yeah.
Something was going on with them, and I still remember to this day, one of my former coworkers, he came in, he sat down, had one of those pill separators on the table,
Oh
and I
man.
asked him, I said, "Hey, what's that for?" And mind you, I'm like, I don't know, like 19 around this time, and I said, "Hey, what is that?" I was like, "Oh, I take this for pain every day." And in my mind, I was like, "Oh no, this is not my future." So I kept pushing and studying. I was coming to work every day with my book bag, to the point where my supervisors called me professor, because I was studying during lunch breaks and everything. So I was very determined to make that pivot into IT.
That's fantastic. And, I think for our listeners, we've had several guests on that have talked about their eclectic career paths into cyber. So I would say and remind everyone that there's really no one way to get into cyber. As you're seeing Dr. Joseph from his own experience, he took a very unique path, and we've had several people on that have said the same thing. So if you're thinking about cybersecurity, it's a great place to be. And you don't have to, uh, just because you might be in HVAC, or you might be working somewhere where you're looking for an advancement and you figure that's all you know. Don't think that way. You can always get into cyber, and we'd love to have determined folks. So that's fantastic. So how did you catch your first break? What was the
Yes. So my first break, um, I guess first in the IT was, so during my time while I was um, at the VA hospital in East Orange, New Jersey. As I mentioned, as I was studying, during this time, I was applying for jobs that were open at the time, and I was receiving a lot of rejections. It was almost to the point where I almost, gave up, uh, I received, I don't know, at least 7 or 8 rejections until I finally broke through. And I give a lot of credit to my first supervisor in IT that gave me that chance. I think he saw how determined and I guess hungry I was.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, getting to that point was not easy from all the failures I had previously to get in. So with that said, and any project that came up, I was raising my hand and say, yeah, I'll do it, because to me it's like, that's experience. Who am I to turn it down? And I
What
think
a
my
great
supervisor did.
attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my supervisor, he liked that. Especially given other folks in the shop, they were like, "Oh man, I don't want to do that." Me, I was like, "I'll do it." And 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 that really, I believe, cultivated a great relationship between my supervisor and I. And even to this day, I still keep up with him. He's actually retired now. His name is Gary Giordano, and he gave me a lot of leeway. He allowed me to really experiment, and with that allowed me to learn and to really to grow. And I give him a lot of credit for that because from what I've seen, going from the Air Force up till now through my civilian government career, I've had good leaders and bad leaders, and bad leaders don't want to let you, they kind of want to keep you close and really don't want you to deviate from anything. But no, my supervisor, he really trusted me, and he allowed me to really do what I needed to grow and to flourish. He always pushed on me to go for certs, get certifications under my belt.
Yep.
He always pushed that on me. He's a, I remember he gave me like this big book, like this big DOS book to study. So it was just a culmination of different things that uh, I think really helped propel me something that I took on because I left there from that point on to go to I went to Nebraska and worked at the VA hospital there, and then bounced around a bit. Then from there, worked at the Air Force as a sysadmin for Offutt Air Force Base before returning back to the East Coast, and that's where I worked at the DoD Cybercrime Center, and that was a lot of fun. Uh, I don't know how much I could really say
No, but
what we did,
well,
but
I was going to ask you
yeah,
now. You can say I can't answer this, but I got to ask you
yeah.
what can you give maybe hint at some memorable crimes that you saw, things that you would say, wow, that was pretty good.
I don't know if I could really elaborate too much um, on those things. I guess more just what was already out in the public. I think so during that time, uh, North Korea was being fussy. So
Yeah,
we would
that's a nice term.
I yeah I definitely enjoyed the morning meetings and I guess the morning briefings, I should say, and kind of go through all the different, I guess threats for the day or what have you, and
Well, I
I
gotta
don't know.
let me ask you this. Like you brought up North Korea, are those guys competent? I'm curious. I mean, or was this one of the things they had one competent fellow, and then you guys would know when the bad crew came on because they just didn't know a clue what they were doing.
So, what, as far as North Korea,
Yeah.
or um, I don't know. I That part I can't. I guess maybe I can't confidently answer. We definitely had our analytics folks that maybe they were more in hand or in touch with that. But from what I've seen, I guess I would say that maybe North Korea wasn't the top, as far as threat actors. I mean, there definitely were a threat actor, but you know, maybe efficiency, maybe they weren't, at the top at the
I
top of the
I
list.
get you're being very polite. I it's I might use some other language there, but I get it. I think our listeners are going to understand that too, and I had a feeling that that just might be the case. So let me rewind just for a second. You mentioned that you had a lot of rejections and failures. Is what fail I guess personally, and this is just my opinion or my experience, that you really can't have success that is lasting without having experienced failures. It
Right.
never really works out. The failures teach us some of the most valuable lessons. So, is there anything that you would say that you look back on now that you say, well, at the time it looked like a failure, but that was a key thing that helped me achieve my success?
I would. So if I'm going back, that would be going back even to when, um, before I joined the military. So after I finished high school, I received acceptance to Penn State University. They sent me the welcome packet in the mail, and
Oh, you
I
got
was all excited, ready to go. And we go through the packet, my parents and I, and we get to the financial section, and it was almost like you're trying to buy a Mercedes Benz every year, and my parents was like, not gonna be able to do it.
it.
So um, yeah, so that was, I wasn't upset, of course, at them or nothing like that. But naturally I was disappointed because I did want to go, but so at the same time I had to think, okay, what am I going to do? Because I don't want to. I'm not the one to really sit at home and just do nothing. I had to figure out what I was going to do as graduating high school, and I have this summer now, which I thought I was going to go to Penn State, but plans change. So what now during my time in high school, well, I attended Mount Vernon High School. And mind you, I'm a product of Mount Vernon, New York, born in the Bronx. And
Oh,
I moved to Mount Vernon when I was about 4 years old. And, I don't really have much memories of the Bronx, like growing up, but really Mount Vernon is my home. But yeah, so with that said, yeah, I attended Mount Vernon High School. At the time when I attended, they had started a new JROTC, or Air Force Junior ROTC program at the time, and so when that was announced, when that occurred, my mom, she came to the school. She's like, "Hey, we're signing you up. We you decided signing you up." So I was like, "Okay, I guess that's what we're doing." So I signed up, and no, it was probably the best thing ever did, because that helped, during the 4 years, that really helped prepare me for what at the time, I didn't have plans to necessarily say I was going to do the military at the high school, but it definitely gave me something for me to, I guess, to fall back on, in a sense. I know that may sound cliche, but no, it definitely helped me. And I'm so grateful. And I still thank my parents up till now, because I still reap the benefits of the military up to this point. Um, so the stipulations, of course, with the military and junior RTC programs is that you have to attend the JROTC program for at least 3 years in order to get credit within the military. And of course, when with credit, we're talking about rank, and rank is money. That's how you get paid. So after finishing basic training, instead of you know graduating as a no stripe or one stripe on my sleeve, I had two. So that was a big jump, and that was a big advantage. And I'm thankful again. It gave me
fantastic.
that step ahead.
But again, motivation, man. I tell you, you're
Oh
one
yeah,
motivated person. You willing to go that mile.
yeah. So it's no, like I said, it really like I said, that did give me that motivation to I think a lot of times I try to assess situations, and then I try to plot out what it is I'm going to do next. What's the next step? Um, I guess another part is that I guess I'll mention too is that I was so I have four kids, and I had a phone call with my son, my youngest son Ricky. He's 9. He's gonna be turning 10 towards the end of this month, and it was a difficult, it was a hard conversation because he told me that he couldn't read or he had trouble reading, and that as a father hearing that, I felt kind of helpless because at the time you know he they're living in Nebraska with their mom, and I'm on the East Coast, and I felt sort of helpless, and then but also at the same time my brain is working, thinking, okay, what can I do to help him? And so I got to I spoke with my cousin,
Yeah.
my cousin Nick, who lives in the Bronx, and started, I explained to him my, I guess, my plan of what I want to do was, you know doing something to where, like pretty much reading books in front of a camera for him, but because a lot of kids, they love, especially now, they want the tech in front of them,
Right.
like iPads or what
Instant
have you.
gratification. Yeah.
Right. So, I'm thinking, okay, I have to kind of meet him where he is. So if he's going to be doing that, let me be one of those clips that he watches, and and playing on that familiarity, because he sees it's someone he knows, his father, and then he'll be more apt to join along because he sees me reading. He would want to follow along as well. So after, I guess, some pilot uh, episodes, or what have you, or trials, I should say, um, we was able to create uh, pretty much create a group called Read to Lead. So we created a whole YouTube channel. We did everything. Um, Really creating a social media presence, on Instagram, Twitter, what
Oh,
have
fantastic.
you,
And
and
what was the name of the group again?
Read to Lead.
Read to Lead. Okay.
Yeah, and we yeah, so essentially we were just you know we started out with me, reading books in front of the camera, and just really just trying to make it fun. Also, at that time, I became more aware of how much I guess literacy within kids was, how much of a problem or an issue that is, for kids. So we wanted to make reading, and make reading fun. A lot of times, if they don't see if the kids don't see it as work, they're more apt to, to do it more often, or to to do something where they don't feel like they need any push from anyone. Be like, hey, I want to read this, or and I think that's good, because then it helps to increase that literacy, and also and also creating those new neural pathways in their brain, and really understanding the material. So yeah, we were doing that, and we expanded, um, and with my whole crew, in a sense, it was all family members. So my brother, Javi, and Alex, my sister, Jojo, and my sister-in-law, Sharice, and of course, my wife, Hadassah, was part of that group. Yeah, and we would, do these recordings and post them on YouTube, and really create some visibility within our Twitter and Instagram handles. Um, when the pandemic hit, things pretty much uh, shut down in a sense. We were really pushing to,
So you guys, do you
uh,
actually have to stop the group in the pandemic?
yeah, it was hard because, we did our recordings at the time at my parents' house, when at the time,
Oh,
yeah, they were living in New York, but they've since now moved. They're in Connecticut now, but yeah, and mind you, I was living in Virginia, so I would drive up on the weekends, and we
oh
all
man,
meet
you
up,
guys were
and
doing this the
do this
hard
record.
way. Now you know. I just
Yeah,
clued you in on this platform, so you don't have to That's
oh yeah. Believe me, if I knew about this, then
yeah.
we would have kept this thing
Yeah,
going.
you don't want that's the hard way to do it because now I understand that completely. But that's an honorable thing to do, and I assume that you guys probably have a pretty good following. I'm going to check it out. I have an 80-year-old son, and
Yeah.
check out Read to Lead and see uh, how he likes it. I'm sure it's pretty fun. Uh, so let me ask you this: switching to a little bit more jumping into the world of cyber, and you've spent a lot of time in the federal government. One of the areas that's been a huge concern, and for a lot of people, and Ted Koppel actually wrote the book on this thing, it's about our national grid, our power grid.
Right.
Can you help us understand? Are you aware of any legislation that's been brought into play to help harden the grid? Is there any pending action or any proposals? Because from what we understand, right now it's just a conglomeration of a bunch of independent companies that have come together that create our national grid, and that creates a vulnerability, if you will, in one of the most sensitive infrastructures in the country.
Well, I guess I guess a quick answer, there hasn't been anything that's been I guess fully effective as of yet. We had the executive order 13 800, and that was strengthening the cybersecurity federal networks and critical infrastructure during the Trump administration. And so the purpose of that was to improve the nation's cyber posture and capabilities as we faced, various cybersecurity threats. Um, Last year, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act was passed. I think that was in around July or August, if I remember
Mm-hmm.
correctly. And so out of it's about $550 billion in new spending. It was a big infusion of money, which I think a lot of folks within the cybersecurity field were really paying attention to it, because I think one of the biggest thing was that, for whatever reason, organizations, they always look at cybersecurity last, or give cyber, the least amount of money when it comes to divvying up within
Why
organizations.
is that, by the
Uh,
way? Just to sidetrack a little, what's your? I have an opinion about it, but I'm curious to hear yours.
I don't know. It's almost as if like they feel. And this is my opinion. I think they feel if everything's going okay, like, why do I need security now, or why do I need to invest so much money into it now? But it's almost like a backwards thinking, because then once there's reports of an organization or a company being exposed, or being compromised, that's when the money starts flowing. And I think by that time it's too late, because you're you're already facing, I would say, public embarrassment. Because I was, some of the things you hear, like, and it be like some of the simplest things, like they using very simple passwords,
Oh,
kind of like cyber 101, like not changing the default password on certain things. So it's, stuff like that. And if you're responsible for, a great amount of customers, um, and you're having very lax cybersecurity rules or posture, it doesn't look good on the company. So, but honestly, I don't know. I hopefully things, that attitude has changed or starting to change when it comes to that. Or, but I feel like they, the mindset has been, for what I surmise, is that if everything is going okay, they don't want to invest a lot of
yeah,
money
we've seen it.
in the cyber.
People. There's a lot of companies. It's really cost prevention. A lot of companies feel it that way, and they don't
Hmm.
realize that cybersecurity is not an IT problem. It's actually a business problem, right? And what happens is that a lot of times the cyber responsibilities, from what we have seen, cybersecurity responsibilities rest with the IT, the general IT team. And they're not typically specialists in the area. And as a result, their spend is related to more IT related causes than cybersecurity related causes. There's an inherent conflict there, which is why we've typically been the proponent of trying to pull the CISO's office out of the CIO's office. And they should be separate, and have their own budget and do what necessarily needs to be done, and have a risk reporting obligation. But we don't get to set the rules, so
Right.
we just get to say an opinion. But I agree with you. There's a lot of companies where it goes on the back burner. It really does. So with that, like, did you guys? I'm sure the federal government's done assessments on the risk to the grid. I can't believe they would not have. They would have probably done some very detailed threat assessments.
Yes, and one thing I did want to add,
Yes,
when
please.
it comes to, I guess, money, or appropriations for the grid. So from that investment, and Jobs Act, I think about $27 billion was cut out for power grid spending, and that'll be over the course between 2022 through 2026. So I'd say it's a good start. Still a lot more work to be done, because I feel like the grid in it as a whole it's a you know it's a big patch job.
It really
It's
is.
yeah. So and it's hard to, as with anything, if you want to repair something, you have to take it down, take it offline. Talking about doing that for the grid, that's almost impossible. Not without not without doing that without having any real world effects. So I'd say it's a very hard balancing act to want to address a problem, the amount of money that's needed to you know to, to, to truly address it, and have effective change for it. And
Would we
because
ever
also
get? Would we ever? So let's say there was even all the money in the world for this. Given the fact that the generation is separate from transmission, which is separate from distribution, would a lot of these distributors are smaller companies? Do you think they would even jump on the bandwagon to do something? Because if I'm going to penetrate the grid, that's where I would start. That's the low-hanging fruit right there. Start
Mhm.
from the distribution guys.
and
Generation's
so
pretty good. I mean, those are big companies, right? They've
smaller companies that they can't afford to take those necessary, or require, or make those necessary security measures. um, they
Yep.
they're more apt to take more risks with their security, because they just can't bandwidth. A lot of smaller companies, their security posture is a person of one or two people, and they're already stretched thin to begin with. So when it comes to security vulnerabilities, or someone who's trying to penetrate the grid, they will look at those, not necessarily, those more established power companies who has a more or stronger, or hardened security posture. They look at those smaller companies that's connected, those companies that are stretched thin with a person of, security team of one or two people, and go in that route. So, there needs to be, for those companies, I would say they need to be provided with more adequate training. They need more help. I think more guidance, more assistance. I don't know that should be from the federal level, but that does pose a problem when it comes to strengthening the grid from all facets.
Well, let's just chat about that for a second. Do you think then the federal government itself should maybe provide the cybersecurity umbrella for those smaller providers that are in the critical infrastructure? Or is that really a bad idea?
I don't know. I guess maybe give them the option, because I don't want to say anything that should be necessarily mandated or anything coming from the federal government. It seems like the word mandate is not a good word now these days. So yeah, I don't know, and it's and also these companies, they're private sector companies that they don't necessarily they're not government employees, so it's I don't know. I guess it's a hard balancing act because they are providing a service,
but the thing is that there are a lot of cybersecurity firms out there that could provide them with a professionally delivered umbrella. I think maybe just raising the awareness in those companies to, if they don't realize they don't have the resources internally, then look elsewhere, wherever it may be, right? But get the coverage that's needed. Get the protection in place.
Right.
You don't have to do it all in-house. You don't have to invent the wheel, man. People have already done that.
Right. Yeah.
Just buy it. Which brings, back in 2014, when the Russians annexed the Crimea, I should say, from the Ukraine, one of the key pillars of their attack was a cyber attack on the Ukrainian grid. How did that attack take place, and could that same attack take place in the United States?
All right, so we're getting to the meat and potatoes now.
Yeah.
All right.
I just love to know.
Yeah. So, given what Russia was able to accomplish in 2015, I believe was quite significant. So they manipulated the grid, which left over about 200,000 Ukraine residents in complete darkness.
How did they do that? Fill us in a little bit. Give us the good stuff. What did they do?
Okay, so right. So yeah, so when Russia first attacked Ukraine in 2015, it was through a cyber group called Sandworm. So they're state-sponsored hackers. So they launched a series of attacks against Ukrainian media, agencies and the like. And so I was saying, they did this like right before Christmas. So mind you, it's cold, not having any power or heat in your house. So and part of what they did was, or Sandworm, they essentially perform DDoS attacks, which pretty much they were like bombarding their operators with fake phone calls to overwhelm them. They turned off the backup power supply to their control rooms to pretty much add on to the chaos that's already ensuing.
So they got into the ICSs, the industrial control systems, to turn off the power of the backup?
Right.
Was this a case of someone not changing the default password on the ICS?
That I wouldn't be surprised, but their security posture was at least for Ukraine's response. It took them a while to figure it out. After about 6 hours, before they were able to initiate that that manual override to turn the systems back on, and then following year in 2016, Russia attacked Ukraine again, and I would say, Russia uses Ukraine almost as like their cyber test bed. I don't mean to make light of it, but
Yeah,
it's
especially in light of
it's
current circumstances. It's horrible what's happening to those folks.
right. And it's almost like history kind of repeating itself almost. Yeah, because they're, of course, unfortunately, they're doing it again, but this time with more kinetic weaponry this time, or more soldiers on the ground this time as well. But in 2016, they so Russia attacked Ukraine again, focusing on the capital of Kiev or Kiev. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing it correctly. There, at that point, they destroyed like terabytes of data, including the country's national budget for the year. I mean, it's more like one of those nuisance attacks. Um, and this attack, culminated towards another power grid attack. This attack was shorter this time around, but it was, I would say it's still very effective, still, powerful attack. They disabled safety systems in the transmission station. So, when Ukrainian operators went to, go for that manual override, it could have caused an overload of current, may have caused transformers to explode as a result. But that that part of the attack failed due to it was like a minor, I guess, misconfiguration in the malware. But
Well, that's a good thing that happened, but that also says that these are so your typical hacking group does not have power systems engineers on their team that can tell you, hey man, knock out the safety control system first, and then that's going to result in X, Y, and Z happening. It sounds like they actually the Russian government provided a lot of technical resources to help architect what an attack on the grid should look like.
yeah, I would say so. They and as we talk about this, and I think there really is an inherent fear as we see this playing out, and especially like right now with what's going on. There is a fear of Russia gravitating towards using nuclear attacks, and also turning their sights onto the U.S. I mean, the history between Russia and the U.S. I would say, is very well documented. Russia doesn't like us, and they don't want us to help Ukraine. So the more, I believe, with more sanctions and really trying to put I would say, a stranglehold on Russia, trying to limit their capabilities, I think it's, to me, in my opinion, it's going to have the opposite effect. Instead of slowing down Russia, it may even, I would say, anger them even more. And like I said, they may turn their attention towards the United States. But also, I think one thing to mention, one thing to watch for too, is the role of China. China, they're almost on the fence to say, they're saying, they're kind of in the middle, saying they don't support what's going on, but they're not fully condemning Russia either. And I think recently there's been reports of they might be providing Russia with money, which they're pretty much cut off right now, Russia, due to the severe sanctions that the U.S. has levied on them. Um, uh, yeah, so there's been early reports of like I said, China wanting to provide assistance in that regard. So, and if you have China and Russia working in tandem, it doesn't. I would say it could spell something of a World War III type of event.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. When the Russians disabled some of the control systems, were they able to do this in the nuclear plants as well? In the nuclear power plants? That the Ukraine had?
Yes. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question one more time?
I'm sorry. The question was that you mentioned like they did DDoS attacks and then they were able to disable safety systems. Was it? I'm assuming that was on conventional power generation or transmission facilities. Were they able to do something similar? Were any of Ukraine's nuclear power plant assets affected by the cyber attack?
That as far as for Ukraine's nuclear, that I'd say I'm not quite familiar. I don't want to give a incorrect answer there.
No, that's fine. Because that was one thing in the literature I've read, I didn't get the impression that those were that affected, but I was just curious. So I thought I'd ask the question on that topic. Now, could the strategy that was employed by the Russians in the Ukraine, could that strategy work against the United States? Is it even possible that would be successful, or
I would say part of it could be. I would say at least, but at this point, not without help, and that's why, as I mentioned, the kind of just watching and see what happens. I think a lot of attention right now is with China. If there is, let's say China comes out and say, hey, I'm signing with Russia, that could be a problem. For the United States. I think Russia by itself, no, especially at its, I would say, current weakened state. But if they do have the backing of, I would say, a superpower in China, I think their chances go up substantially, or exponentially, I should say, because China does have. Because as I'm thinking right now, just merging their cyber teams, their cyber armies, what happened between Russia and China? If they say, hey, let's put our forces together and focus on the U.S. Yeah, I think that could be an issue for the United States. There could be some damage or substantial some sort of substantial effect if that were to happen.
But I gotta believe that our strong armed forces are what the deterrence is there, because we would probably regard that as an act of war.
And that's always the question as to like at what point do we say do we which cyber attack is the one that says that we can retaliate with our own forces. It's always seemed to be towing the line, doing some of this, and it's not necessarily new as far as the United States does attacks in different countries and vice versa, but it's almost at what point I guess which attack is the one that's gonna say, hey, are you really crossing the line? Now we're gonna involve our troops. I feel if there is an attack that's very effective, I will say if given the current state of our power grid, and if there was an attack that was able to really do some harm, I guess here to the homeland through the power grid, I think that would be enough, especially given what's going on currently right now. I believe that would be enough for the United States to retaliate with force, and again, it creates that world like 3 type of scenario.
Right. I would imagine so. I'm thinking that it wouldn't be the attack wouldn't be something small. It would be something that would cause catastrophic damage where
Right.
we've actually disabled our power grid for several months on end. And now people can't get to refrigeration. They can't get fuel.
Right.
They can't do the basics of life that everyone is used to now because we're so dependent on electricity. That would probably be the trigger point of, well, that's an act of war. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, and as you mentioned, I mean, just I think attacking or compromising any of our critical infrastructure sectors. If you look at the financial sector, you know, if we get to a point where you go to the bank, you try to pull out money, and all the ATMs, all banks to say no, there's no access. That's going to cause that's going to put a lot of people in survival mode or survival tactics. I'd say. You look at the hospital sector, and they've been, or healthcare sector, I should say, they've been hit hard with cyber attacks as well, especially during at the start of the COVID pandemic. If it gets to a point where the healthcare sector is truly compromised, patients can't be seen, charts, a lot of the data for different patients are relied upon, technology, and if that is a compromise, right? If that is compromised, especially for extensive period of time, where you take out that sector, you take out the power for extended period of time, where even backup generators are they run their depletion. We have a serious problem. Now we're talking about loss of life. There's not going to be, there won't be any sort of civil discourse anymore, because now it's all about survival. I think, you're talking about riots, increased violence, because
I think it would lead to quite a chaotic situation because
absolutely
modern life in the United States is highly dependent upon electrical power.
Right.
It's not like if we turn back to the clock to the 1930s where those guys were tough. They lost power. Yeah, okay. We used to eat fresh food. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah, back in my day, type of thing.
People didn't have cars all the time. They took steam locomotives, or they rode their bikes, or did different things. All that stuff's out the window. So what should we do here? What are your give us some strategies or suggestions for what should be done to minimize the risk to our grid?
Well,
Canada's, because you can't disregard them. Those guys are unfortunately tied with us in some respects.
All right. So, so as great as you mentioned that. So the U.S. electric grid, comprises of three, interconnected grids. So the Eastern, Western, and Texas.
Texas its own grid?
Yeah. Yes. ERCOT. It's separate from everyone else. Why?
Just cause?
I guess that's how Texas likes to do it. That's how they roll, I guess. Unfortunately, we saw how that didn't work in their favor. Was it last?
Didn't work at all in their favor.
No.
There were people that got hit with $40,000 electric bills because.
Right. There was loss of life during a time when they got hit with that big, winter storm, which was pretty much unexpected. Our first time in, I don't know, forever. I don't recall the exact.
It seems like the once in 100-year events are happening on a bi-weekly or bi-monthly basis. So
yeah, but I think it is time to really prepare. or take those considerations more seriously, because yeah, as you said, like those type of weather events, they're starting to happen a little bit more frequently than than they did before historically. So it's something I'd say you can't necessarily ignore or put off to the side anymore. So as we come with all the interconnected grids, so from the vantage point of North America, Quebec's Canadian province constitutes that fourth interconnection, and the eastern interconnection makes up 2/3 of the United States. Consisting of the United States and Canada. So the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, or NREL, they performed a study in increasing the transfer capacity for existing connections that could help balance energy loads and increase efficiency for the U.S. or the United States' energy resources. So they partnered. So the group of NREL researchers, they partnered with, or they're working in tandem with Department of Energy, National Labs, Iowa State University, and also just industry experts. They conducted a study called the Interconnections SEAM study. So, and the purpose of the study was they want to evaluate the costs and benefits of strengthening the connections, or seams, as they termed it, between the western and eastern power grids, using like high voltage direct current technology. So, and what they want to accomplish with that was trying to keep the capital and operational costs, keep both costs for generation transmission resources across the United States to a minimum. But however, when they conducted this study, it did not include ERCOT, as I mentioned, Texas. So the White House, they had unveiled this was sometime last year. They unveiled like 100-day plan to protect, their plan to protect the U.S. power grid from cyber attacks, and mainly by doing so and the way they want to accomplish that was by wanting to create or foster stronger relationships between the U.S. national security agencies and most of our private utilities that run the electrical system. As I mentioned before, the United States, it's been well documented that cyber threats, focusing mainly on the power grid, continues to increase, continues to change, and losing the word. They continue to get more, I would say, more, I guess, crafty, in how they deliver their cyber attacks.
There's a lot of innovation on that side of the house.
Right. So with that plan, they want to include a series of they want to, as I mentioned, that I guess more that collaboration or consultation between the utilities and the government. But it will take, with that plan, it's not going to be overnight. It is going to take say quite a few years for that to be implemented, or to really see any immediate effects from that. But part of that plan, they're asking utilities to pay for and install technology to better detect hacks, of specialized computer systems which run or have direct connection to the country's power systems, or alternatively known as ICS, industrial control systems. But I guess a couple things that So that's more on I guess on the national level. I guess what a lot of people can do at home, and this may, this a lot of people may not agree with this, but or may not want to hear it, but all those fancy,
this is the hate mail part of the program.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the most popular, but all the fancy devices, the Google Minis, all this, all the smart thermostats and smart locks, all that stuff. You got to take it out because as you add more of those devices within your home, or even for different companies or organizations, you're you're increasing convenience, and that's why a lot of people do it, or they get them, but also at the same time, any of those devices that are online, they're being assigned an IP address, and with an IP address, you're increasing that attack surface, and you are giving another entryway, a possible way in for an attacker to get within your system, your home system, or your home network. And as far as I guess more on the power grid scale too, we see a bit of that. We're trying to create that efficiency for operators, monitoring the power grid, being able to monitor, away from, I guess, the base station or what have you. But knowing that as you're able to remote it and watch it, attackers potentially could do the same thing too. So it is a balancing act between convenience and security,
and you have to determine forever.
Right.
It's been and convenience has won out most of the time.
Yeah.
And I would also put a little bit, quite a bit of ownership on the OEMs though, because when they're designing their products and technologies, security doesn't even have a seat at the table in many cases.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's really been about the convenience factor. Like your not so smart fridge or Alexa or Google Minis and all these things. Those are all attack surfaces, and they're all represent vulnerabilities in many respects.
Oh, absolutely. I watched a demonstration.
Says it in writing. I mean, they tell you buy our TV if it's got a camera or a microphone on it, turn it on.
Yeah. I mean, all of them are pretty much listening devices within your home.
Yeah.
So I mean, whether people want to acknowledge that or not, but
Well, we saw it with Ring. Remember the hack with Ring?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. They were using those devices to actually transmit and receive.
Right.
So it went both ways. Well, Dr. Joseph, we're here at the hour. I know it's a Friday afternoon. We really appreciate your time, and we're going to have you back because we really just touched on a little bit about your career and how you moved over to cyber. We'd really like to continue a little bit of that conversation, and I think our listeners would like to hear about it as well, especially as many people who listen are considering careers in cybersecurity, and I think it would be of benefit to those folks. But we really appreciate your time. And if there are any links that you would like us to have, please send them to me and I'll put them in the show notes.
Absolutely. I'll do that.
Yeah, please do. And let us know can people reach out to you if they would like to get a hold of you in some way, shape, or form.
Sure. I think the best way is through LinkedIn. Just find, just type my name in the search bar and you'll find me. I love to connect. I definitely love speaking with people, whether it's in academia, those who are just starting out, in the IT or cyber field. I definitely make time to speak with those, and just, I love to do mentorships, consultations, what have you. So yeah, LinkedIn is really the best way you can reach out.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any final parting words you'd like to get in before we go?
Yes, actually. I do want to mention, I guess for your population or for your listeners, my wife, Hadassah Burt-Miller, so she is a full spectrum doula and a Lamaze educator. And due to the current maternal and infant mortality and morbidity rates within the Black community, that's something that she's very passionate about. She's currently a student working towards becoming a certified professional midwife in the DMV area. So any of your listeners planning on having babies soon, reach out to her. And we're talking about veterans. I have a very good contact, Dr. Lisa Marie Lee. She does great work assisting veterans who are, to help them entering the civilian workforce. Utilizing their earned skills to, get their desired job or career field and really pay that they deserve. She's doing great work. So you can find her on LinkedIn as well. And I can give her, information to you afterwards for the show notes.
Please do. We'll put them in the show notes.
I will do.
Appreciate
it. Thank you.
Well, it's been fantastic, and we're looking forward to having you back. Take care and have a great week.
Thank you, sir. You do the same.